Thank you, Wes, for that introduction. And while the panelists come up, would you please pull up our presentation? Food. Oh, there you go. Thank you. I want to welcome you all today to this discussion about the bioeconomy and follow up with this incredible lead about how we are moving from an extractive economy into a symbiotic economy that sustains life. And I think that's so important here in Texas. Just a brief background, I started my career in post-conflict reconstruction, and so I have seen what scarcity does and what it creates. And after that, I have had the opportunity to work both in impact water finance and also regenerative ag. And I've seen now the other side of how thinking conceptually about beyond sustenance, regenerative work, can completely flip the script. And I think that's so important here in Texas. And I'm delighted to have all these panelists here today to discuss their various expertise in food, nature restoration, water, heat, and jobs. So with that, I'm going to turn to Matt as our first speaker. Am I doing this correctly? If you'll just move it to the next slide, please. And I wanted to briefly introduce how we are envisioning the bioeconomy. And I won't read you this slide, but this is an introduction to how the panel is thinking towards this. And now next slide, please, we'll move to Matt.
Thanks so much. Thrown from a makeshift raft, tossed by the waves and dumped on shore, wandering to find something, anything to drink. Just on the cusp of giving up, you find a few drops in the hollow of a log. This is actually the very first recorded European encounter with Texas. Assaulted by too much water and then saved by just enough. This is also something that the original inhabitants of this land had been learning for thousands and thousands of years. 500 years later, here in Texas, we've taken an approach that relies on speed, hyper-efficiency, and just-in-time delivery of supplies. This system has become super creaky, and that was before the last 4 years have been among the hottest and driest on record, and before the state's population passed 30 million, and before the recent conversations about things like data centers and other pressures on our systems. But what if instead of going super fast, we slowed things down? There are a few emerging movements that I really want to highlight here. The first is slow water, restoring the natural slow phases to flex with the rhythms of the earth. Another one is One Water, an integrated collaborative planning framework that recognizes every single drop has value, no matter where it is or what it looks like. And the last is nature-based solutions, using the power of ecosystems to address multiple challenges and deliver benefits for people and the environment. And that last one, nature-based solutions. What if instead of copying, we did something more? And instead of using, we didn't use as in we're using it, but what if we set it free to do so much more? And when we set nature free, we get so much in return. Ecosystem services like clean water, recreation, wildlife habitat, health benefits, heat reduction. Our own houses become a little bit safer from floods, and we also can maybe fear fire a little bit less. So many things in return. But would this be hard? Heck yes, it would be super hard. But did you see the headlines last week? Keeping our current course in water supplies in Texas will cost us $200 billion just to keep a creaky system going. And that's on the super conservative side. That doesn't also cover the cost of flood mitigation or of, as Sue pointed out earlier to me, maintaining existing old breaking systems, or cleaning and treating the water that you and I make. I'll say make every single day. This is going to be expensive. That price tag is hard. We've tried things that are becoming questionable in their success. I think it's time to try something different.
Thank you, Matt. That is a wonderful presentation of both the risks, but also the opportunity in restorative nature-based systems. We will now turn to Susan Alvarez, who's going to do an overview of the regulatory system here in North Central Texas.
So this is sort of one of those Monty Python, and now for something completely different. So I work for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and for those of you who don't know who we are, yes, I'm the governance person, and speaking about how we're addressing that. We coordinate all the cities, all the counties, all the special districts in the 16-county area around DFW. And so our main reason for existing is to convene and collaborate, coordinate. And we encourage, support. We do get funding from various sources to do so, but all things water. And we do look at a one water cycle. I was moved earlier by John's comments, and we are, with respect to water, in somewhat of an extractive mindset. And I think we do need to move to a more circular mindset and recognize that it is a symbiotic system. Recently, knowing that water is a challenge, we were doing some strategic planning at the COG, because we love to plan. We have all kinds of planners that make plans for plans. And so we are doing some internal, how does the COG grow, and in what ways do we grow? We're in the Metroplex getting 200,000 people per year move in. They are not bringing infrastructure with them. They are not bringing water with them. It is a finite resource. And most people moving in expect that when they open the tap, water comes out. When they flush the toilet, it goes away. And when we get 2 inches of rainfall in half an hour, it goes away. And that they shouldn't really have to pay for these benefits. And so that's the part of the water world that I deal with pretty much daily. So in February, the end of February this year, we convened a water forum with the Urban Land Institute, the Greater Dallas Planning Council, University of Texas at Arlington, ourselves, and the North Texas Commission to talk about all things water. And we invited developers, business people, people from special utility districts, municipal utility districts, groundwater conservation districts. Are you hearing the district theme? Texas Water Development Board, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and then we also had some finance and water rights folks come. We challenged them to come up with opportunities and constraints for water in North Texas. We spoke on themes of climate, conservation and resilience, development and the built environment, finance, water quantity and quality, and regulations and governance. And what is on the screen is the themes that came out that we will need to address moving forward. And you can see that we've got our hands full, and I think it goes back to the initial comments about moving from recognition and moving from an extractive to a circular and more symbiotic system related to water.
Thank you, Sue, for that quick overview. I know you have so much more to tell us. Now moving to Nile. She is going to tell us about a very exciting project right here in DFW.
Hi. So we are working here in Dallas to deploy Miyawaki forests. The Miyawaki system strives to emulate nature by planting native saplings in a vast variety in a very tight succession of 4 to 7 saplings per square meter. As John mentioned earlier, this is a symbiotic emulation of nature. I think there's a lot of opportunity with Dallas's dwindling green canopy to add green infrastructure. And if we're going to be planting throughout the city, I think why not plant efficiently, cost effectively, and in a way that grows 10 times faster. Within 3 years, we'll see a forest grow to almost full maturity and require little to no maintenance. A dollar saved is a dollar earned. In addition to being a much more superior way of planting, the Miyawakis will help to clean the air, a huge problem in the city, landing a lot of kids in the hospital, premature deaths due to air quality, bring down the air temperature, a huge problem here, capture some of the tens of billions of gallons of water, rain that is not coming into our system. These native varieties will keep that water in the ground sequestered where it should be and bring it back into the system. That's a huge opportunity for the city to save money, driving down energy costs for public businesses, private homes. This is a huge issue here in Dallas. I think there's so much technological advancements in the green space, but I'm not sure that a regenerative data center is going to really move the needle. I think we need to look at the way nature operates, watch and learn, and use a more harmonious system. I think a Miyawaki forest is a perfect example of that. I think all around the world, these kind of ideas of going back to emulation of nature, this is how we're going to, as Wes mentioned, this isn't, okay, I guess I can't speak more, but yes, I think this is the perfect opportunity for harmonious advancement.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, Niall. All of our panelists have a lot to talk about. I invite you to join us for lunch and come and talk to them more. Moving now from Plan T, which is Niall, to scaling, which is Kapil at Say Trees. Kapil, please tell us more.
Thank you so much. So I started planting trees back in 2007 when I could not see a city losing its green cover. It was converting from a garden city to a concrete city. So what I did was I just started planting by one sapling at a time. As they say, reward of good work is more work. That's what happened. And last year, my nonprofit planted 6.5 million trees. Now, most of these trees have been planted with farmers. These are marginal farmers, very low income, very small piece of land. But what we are doing is we are planting fruit trees with them. These fruit trees will not only give parallel income to these farmers by selling the fruits, but every hectare also brings carbon credit into picture. So what we project is investing about $970 per hectare with a farmer, partnering with a farmer. It's a partnership with the farmer. We are not investing there. We are partnering with them. Farmer gets about $1,300. A farmer earns about $1,300 per year starting year 3. Okay, 3 to 5 years, they start getting $1,300 per year. Year 10, they start getting about $2,500 per year, and in year 15, they start getting about $4,000 per year. So just a $970 per hectare turns into so much amount year after year because the tree grows. And this is just from the sale of fruits. Every hectare generates about 8 carbon credits. The price of each carbon credits now is $25 as of now. It used to be around $10. It's $25 now. So all of this amount goes back to the farmer. So basically what we are doing is we are not just planting trees. We are bringing financial stability to these farmers who are marginal, who don't have much to look after. They get, their crop get destroyed by unseasonal rains and whatnot. So what we are trying to do is we are partnering with farmers, planting millions of trees, and then bringing all of these parallel income to them. As seen here, we have planted about 10 million trees so far. Last year, we planted saplings about 12,500 hectares of land, partnering with about 13,000 farmers. We plan to plant about 10,000 hectares every year. And as I said, this is generating a large amount of income. We predict that by year 2030, we would have generated $100 million in income for these farmer families. By 2040, it's about 400 million, and 2050, about 800 million if all goes well. As you can see, we are also in water conservation. We have restored 50 lakes so far, adding about 5 billion liters of water. It's not 500 million, it's 5 billion liters of water. It's heavily driven by volunteers and all supported by various corporates across the globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kapil. We now turn to Dr. Rose Jones, who will discuss the health components of the bioeconomy.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to add the human factor to our conversation. In North Texas, heat and poor air quality are not side issues to the bioeconomy. They are conditions that shape whether people can work, breathe, recover, and remain productive. The risk is that the steady erosion of human capacity. The opportunity is that mitigation protects the labor force, public health, and regional productivity at the same time. We're already seeing the economic effects. During the summer of 2023, extreme heat slowed down economic growth by a staggering $24 billion. And this is not a future projection, it's a measurement of current strain. In a Dallas Fed survey that same summer, 1 in 4 Texas businesses reported lower revenue and production specifically because of heat. And Dallas-Fort Worth is also in serious ozone non-attainment, meaning poor air quality is compounded in extreme heat. Rather than operating as separate problems, they're converging to exacerbate a problem that we're learning is much more damaging to human health. The bottom line is that North Texas is already paying for heat, but we are miscounting the costs. What shows up in budgets are the downstream responses: emergency care, lost work, business disruption, higher utility burdens, and public spending to manage escalating risk. What remains undercounted is the human harm driving these costs in the first place. We keep treating damage control as evidence of economic activity rather than evidence of a system under strain. Some of these are governance issues. In Texas, state preemption has weakened local labor protections, such as a requirement for water breaks for construction workers, shifting the preventable heat risk back onto workers, families, hospitals, and ultimately the regional economy. The better path is upstream investment to prevention, protection, and design before those costs are incurred. If there's one point of synthesis across the panel, it's this: there is no durable bioeconomy without durable human capacity. The human factor is not a side consideration in the bioeconomy. It's the operating condition beneath every sector that we've been discussing. Whether we're talking about food, nature, water, waste, energy, or jobs, all of those systems depend on people whose bodies can safely work and recover from the climate issues that we're dealing with. A region essentially is not building a bioeconomy if it is steadily degrading the human capacity that makes that possible. In North Texas is spending billions just to help people survive the consequences of heat. That's not growth. What it is a failing balance sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Okay, we have time for questions, and I'm going to pose the first one while we think about it in the audience. So bioeconomy, if you look at the literal definition from the Greek, it means life, bio, eco, house, and onomy is the study of. So we have brought up today a lot of the investment aspects, and I would love to have each panelist go through and talk about from the capital expenditure, meaning what you need to get started, and the operating expenditures, what you need to keep going, and one key metric. Try to keep it really short. I'll start with Matt at Simforo, please.
One of the things about nature is it exists across scales. And just even from the picture that I shared in my slide, that was an intentional choice by a very large community developer to save a very special place. So when you do this actually, you can see it's wet, it holds water. This was not something they gave up, but this was a strategic choice to do flood mitigation in a way that pops. And that I've actually put on my mud boots, walked in the middle of this at about this time of year, and you will find things that do not exist for probably about 50 miles in every direction, just in this one spot. So that was a foregone ability to put some houses here, but this also makes this area much more unique. And I don't want to just be squishy about it, but this was a flood mitigation choice. And because of the beauty, the home values in this particular area are much higher than honestly the surrounding region, because people want to be very close to this. And not just building houses and living in houses, but people will drive to the trails that are in this area to spend time with these places.
So quality of life and
Big time.
cost effectiveness.
Big time. So it's doesn't have to be a cost. It can actually be foregone expenditures on other things that you can then claim towards cost. But this could be part of your development plan. Conservation easements can actually be a tax benefit for large landowners and large projects. When you're doing nature-based solutions, small scale, like a rain garden or a bioswale, we're talking maybe tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes less if you go towards a smaller pocket one. I think we can overdo ourselves sometimes in redesigning what nature was already going to do. So the easiest first thing is to save places that are already flexing their muscle for us. And we can kind of come back in and fill in some of those lost elements, lost cycles and dynamics with a relatively large expenditure. Otherwise, we're going to have to come in and pour a lot of concrete as a giant capital project and then replace that every 50 years. And that gets super duper expensive.
So what I think you're saying, Matt, is that we can actually work within the existing systems to put in something like this. So I would like to turn to Sue now and talk about those systems that allow this type of investment.
I think my mics were, oh, there we go. Okay, so I can piggyback on what Matt has said. We're doing existing work with this right now. The National Institute of Building Science indicates that for every dollar spent for resilience, there is an $11 return on that investment. Our own work in North Texas, green infrastructure is 25% the cost of traditional gray. And with respect to water conservation, every drop of water not used is a drop of that 200 billion that we say we need of infrastructure that we don't have to build. And so I think there's a lot of savings, both from an economic and from a social standpoint, relative to saving the water we've got and implementing nature-based solutions and other more, it isn't really passive because it's intentional, but passive forms of flood control.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, Niall.
So for about a tennis court size piece of land, if we want to make a tiny forest there, that's about $15,000 in 3 years. And in my book, time is money. So, I mean, what a bargain. You know, and from the perspective of every panelist here, I think a tiny forest and a green space, it's going to capture that water loss. It's going to cool the ambient temperature. It's going to, you know, it's going to ameliorate the air quality. So all of, you know, you really, these are metrics that you can't even quantify. It's keeping people alive. It's lowering energy costs. It's sequestering the water. It's, you know, keeping kids out of hospitals, keeping, it's infinite. And we have noticed additionally that there's a huge community engagement benefit in volunteer plantings and land stewardship. And we are working on quantifying that data. But from my perspective, seeing a child smile and changing its life trajectory is all the data that you really need before you.
So far we're hearing that there are huge cost savings, there are reduced capital expenditures, and there are incredible, what economists call, indirect effects. So let's move to Kapil as he talks about scaling this.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, when we partner with farmers, a small cost of about $970 per hectare brings us so much parallel income year after year, and that increases as the tree grows. As I said, from fifth year, $1,300, 10th year, $2,500, 15 year, $4,000, and so on. And we need to scale this, because the moment we scale this, we start getting multifold benefits. And in this, it's not only the farmers which are, farmers which are earning parallel income. The corporates are meeting their sustainable goals, and the planet heals. So it's a win-win for all. We just need to partner with the right set of people, people who really need help, and who are ready to just do whatever possible to bring in benefits to them and the communities around them.
Thank you. So both sides of the balance sheet can exist at the same time. Wonderful. Rose.
Thank you. I'll give an example, keeping it within the impact on humans. It's a really interesting study that was due a peer review publication from a resident and several medical students at Children's. And what they did was they retrospectively looked at hospital admissions using ICD codes for 10 years specific to heat. And in that 10-year period of time, they found 170% increase. That's huge. It's getting hotter, it's converging with poor air quality, and what most of us can agree is that those are very likely underrepresented for the real impact for mortality and morbidity. We know that heat affects every system in the human body. I'll give you another example. A woman in her third trimester of pregnancy who's exposed to 95 degrees of Fahrenheit 3 consecutive days, which is basically living in the South, living in Texas for sure, has a 23% increase for what we call severe maternal morbidity. And that's the bad stuff. That's sepsis, hemorrhaging, early birth, et cetera. The cost of that and the cost associated with loss, when children get sick, for example, from heat, somebody's taking them to the emergency room. Those rocket, and then, of course, you've got lower productivity at home. So it's really critical that we begin to integrate some of this information and data into our plan.
Thank you very much. So one thing that I've heard all the panelists allude to is time horizons. So we have a very short amount of time left, 30 seconds each. Talk about a metric which shows the duration of which these effects go into play, if that makes sense. Okay. It does not?
I'll jump in on that, Candace. One of the things that I like to point out is a lot of times when you build traditional big, hard infrastructure projects, water, flood mitigation, the best they're ever going to perform is on day one when you cut that ribbon. And it's degradation over time. A lot of the systems, when you go back and replicate nature, you're starting the clock on natural processes. And when you do them right, they will improve. So that's not a time horizon per se, but it definitely shows a trajectory of performance.
Right.
I
So you're not
honestly
a
don't
monetizer.
understand the question, so I'm going to pass.
Well, Sue, let me ask you. So as a state and local government person, you are constantly planning for not just next year, but 10-year horizons, 30-year horizons. So how does this fit into your planning?
I still don't understand the question.
Sorry, we'll bring it up at lunch. Okay, we'll move to Nile.
Our time horizon is upon planting just kind of a rapid upward trajectory until around 3 years, and then it's not flattening out. It's going to keep going as that biodiversity increases and as the green layer increases. Another time aspect would be how many of these little lungs can we get around the city to create a kind of nodal network. So that's just based on how much we can raise and how much we can deploy.
Great, thank you.
It's same as what Nile mentioned. Is it not working? It's same as what Nile mentioned, because it's at the end of the day, it's trees, 3 to 5 years when the saplings are stable, and from there they start giving real benefits. And what we have been planning for next 20 years, because we are with farmers for next 20 years for sure. So our time horizon is starting now till next 20 years, and this happens every year.
Thank you.
I'll stick with my theme of the impact of heat and air quality on the human body. It's quite significant. And one of the things that I think is really important to put in perspective is that we've got 50 years of air quality, right? The EPA's been there since 1970. There's a recognition in the public and even in the medical community. But consider this. In 2021, the World Health Organization went on record to say that climate crisis is the worst threat to humanity of the century. Flash forward to 2026. Guess how many medical schools currently offer courses on environmental health? It's hard to get data, it's self-reported, but in general, and I'll be generous, about 45 to 50%. Of those, about half of them are elective. It's a one-time course. By the time students in their first year of medical school get to preceptorship, they've forgotten it. So that means we're not screening for it, we're not teaching for it, they're not counting it with ICD codes. What's happening is it's showing up in the clinic and it's showing it in the ED, and that's expensive.
Thank you. Okay, we just have a moment to close. I want to bring out one thing. In 2023, this economy, the bioeconomy, was worth about $230 million here in Texas, and scale that to the United States into the billions. But worldwide, it's considered to be projected $7.7 trillion by 2030. So there's a huge opportunity here. And I'm going to let Sue close because I embarrassed her by not prompting that question well. So please close, Sue.
I hate being put on the spot like this.
I'm so sorry.
So what I will say, and I want to add one other thought that I had, is in a past life I did some work with the Nature Conservancy, Texas Trees, and ourselves on air quality. And we aggregated data from the hospitals, and the leading cost or the leading cause of absenteeism in Dallas schools was pediatric asthma. And there were some schools with up to 38% absenteeism. If you do that math, that means they're missing 2 to 3 days of school per week. Those kids don't stand a chance in a future economy if they don't have the education. And so what I will say is there is a bioeconomy. Personally, I think water runs the world, but I realize that there's other stuff. But everything is connected. What you do in one realm affects the other. And more we need to look at how we impact systems beyond our own piece of the action. And so the work that we do to support the bioeconomy supports water, supports air quality, supports human life in any place that we live. And so with that, I'll stop.
Thank you very much. Join us at lunch.